Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tamara. That is me. We are coming to you. We call these pop-up episodes because what happens is we have all these. Wait, do you hear that echo?
I do not.
Okay. Whew. That was weird. What happens with these episodes, you have to deal with tech issues in the moment. So what happens with these episodes sometimes is I have everything scheduled and then I connect with someone who I think you need to be on the podcast. So we do a pop-up so they don't want to have to wait 4 months to get on. And this one in particular, I think is a very timely and relevant discussion. So just as a reminder to everybody, we are interviewing live. So if you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to ask a question or pop in what you're getting out of it at any time. And then we're on across all the podcast players. You can also, by the way, if you go to our website, which the link is in the show notes, you can actually call in questions ahead of time. That's a new thing that we started doing. So if you're like, well, I can't watch, but I really want to ask these questions, we're here for that. All right. Let me introduce my guest because I'm so excited because just a little quick backstory. Somebody else, Ashton, who I had on the podcast, who you all heard from, was like, you need to meet Felicia and you guys need to have a conversation and connect. And she was right. And here we are. So Felicia Mendes is the founder of Radiant Resurgence Retreat. And she's going to dig into what that is. She has a background in psychology and government policy and has done hopefully I say this right, Felicia, but you've done a lot of work in the space of mental health, particularly with youth, right? And particularly with young youth. So, and I think that's really important too. So Felicia, welcome to the show. I think what I'd love to start off with, because your background's impressive, you've got this retreat, but what got you to where you are today? What got you to the space of the focus that you have?
Yeah, it was definitely both a path of, well, first, thank you for having me, Tamara. This is so fun. I'm so excited to be here today. So it was both professionally and personal path that led me into this industry. I was practicing as a school psychologist and worked in the Denver metro area for about 9 years. And then I felt called to do system level work. And so I now work for the state in the Department of Early Childhood as the Workforce Development Specialist. Very long title. Essentially what I do is I train our mental health consultants that go into preschools and support centers with the mental health needs of the staff and children. We are working to break the preschool to prison pipeline. So statistics show that children who are expelled from preschools are 10 times more likely to end up in the prison system. And so we are working to dismantle that system.
So I didn't know you could get expelled from preschool. So let's just start there.
Sure.
What an important place to start. And I just real quickly, I just have to say before we keep going, so I'm very involved in a nonprofit called FIRE, which is Forging Youth Resilience. So we work with at-risk and underserved youth and teach them resilience, perseverance, what they're capable of through CrossFit. But I'm reading a book called The Anxious Generation. And it's just talking about kind of all the mental health issues that have really welled up in this generation in a way that we haven't seen before. So it makes me really happy to know there's people like you out there working ahead of the pipeline, before it becomes the issues that I think I've been seeing a lot through the nonprofit work today that we hadn't seen 10 years ago. So that's fantastic work.
Yeah, mental health starts early. They say, at birth, our brains are very complex, and the various things that we take in our environment and upbringing impacts our mental health. And so it's really important for us to educate caregivers. So we support not just preschools, but also parents. So anyone who's really has a child under the age of 6, to help educate them on child development and support them in that really prime years of when their brains are just sponges and taking in to support them. So yes, I love my work that I do in mental health, big advocate of mental health. Also within the BIPOC community, I believe in destigmatizing mental health. The more we talk about it, the more it becomes destigmatized. So as I embarked in this new career change, I experienced my divorce. And like many women that go through divorce, it was life altering. I went through a whole inner work of rediscovering myself, reevaluating what's important to me, what I want for my life. I did various methods of healing. So obviously, as a mental health advocate, I was in therapy. I also did a psilocybin journey. So that's probably a very techie term for those of us who aren't in the industry. Psilocybin, also known as magic mushrooms, is the technical term for them. So I used psilocybin both microdosing. So research shows it helps with anxiety and depression in very small microdose. And then I also did a full macrodose journey with a trained psychedelic guide. I also did some self-development courses and sound healing, just various methods of holistic wellness that really, really helped me along my healing journey. So as I was utilizing all these different tools, I realized I had this kind of like recognition of like, wow, how great would this be to package all of these tools to share with other women who are on a similar journey of starting a new chapter. And so I called it my best friend, Ashton, who you just mentioned.
She's great. Yeah.
And she has her very successful yoga business. She's been in that industry for a decade. Great business mind, and told her about my idea. And I was like, I'd love for you to be a part of it. And she was like, I'm in. Send me an agenda. So Radiant Resurgence Retreat is a 4-day retreat for women who are on a new chapter. It includes a pre-work course called Becoming the One, and that taps into our we call it inner child work. So some of those things that we may have experienced in childhood that show up for us as adults, to kind of recognize the barriers that are causing us to be our full self, our real selves. And so it's also, the tagline is, it's an invitation to date and love yourself. And so it really gets back to like loving yourself first before you can show up for others. So not just for women who are divorced, but really anyone, because I mean, we all have relationships, varying types. So the pre-work course helps to tap into your intentions for the retreat, but also to build community among the women. So they're able to share their stories, what brought them here, and their experiences. And then at the retreat, it includes yoga every day with Ashton. And also she does a positive self-talk workshop, which is based off one of her books, A Year of Self-Motivation for Women. So the whole retreat is designed to empower women. Like we want women to leave feeling like, wow, I've just leveled up in life. And so it also includes sound healing and breath work, and then the optional psilocybin mushroom journey with the psychedelic guides. Before coming to the retreat, all attendees meet with the psychedelic guide one-on-one for a full intake. You talk about your intention. And then after the retreat, we do what's called post-integration. So it's really important after experiencing a plant medicine journey, a lot of things come up. So we have a post-integration circle at the retreat, talk about like what came up for you in ceremony, but also after the retreat. So our goal is also to build community and support for women and a network of ongoing empowerment. So.
I love it. So I want to break down some things because I have so many questions for you. Yeah. So the first one is, I want to go back into your journey for a second. And I'm just curious, when you got to that place of seeking out the more holistic approaches, right, to kind of moving forward, I guess, were you at your wit's end? Were you just open? The reason I'm asking is sometimes I find, so I've also been through a divorce, and you don't have to have been through something as drastic as that to be searching, right, for a change in your life. Mm-hmm. But I found that it was always when I tried the traditional things and then was super frustrated that I would start to venture out. But I had to get to a place where what I was doing wasn't working before I could get to the things that worked. And I don't know, maybe that's not true for everybody, but it was for me. And I'm curious if it was for you.
Yeah, I think for me, it was mostly out of curiosity to see, because I'm all about natural holistic healing. And, that's why I tried the microdosing versus like getting on another form of medication. Um, and we are so fortunate to live in a state where they're calling it a renaissance right now, the psychedelic renaissance, where, these types of plant medicines are being decriminalized and eventually will be legalized. And so it's really exciting time. And so for me, it was like, I'm curious to see like how different this might be and how it can help me in addition to all these other things that I'm doing.
So, oh my gosh, I have 10 questions in my head and now they're getting all jumbled. Do you ever have that
Yes.
happen? When you think about your retreats and what women get out of it, what stories have you heard?
Oh, some powerful, amazing stories. Well, I can first kind of just share mine, and then I can share some other stories that we've experienced or heard at our last retreat. So I went into my ceremony with intentions of hoping to have closure on my divorce. And we say that the medicine gives you what you need. And that's so true.
Not always what you ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can go into it with an intention, but it will show you what you truly need. And for me, that was remembering that I'm a good mom. And I had this like kind of discomfort in my back. It wasn't really a pain. It was just like this, like something back there is just like this muscle. And my guide said, if that muscle could talk, what would it say? And I suddenly just started crying and I was like, I'm a good mom. And I just had this big release. And as soon as I let it all out, the pain went away. So just like truly like remembering that I always knew that, but I was holding on to this guilt for what I put my son through with the divorce. And so that really helped me to let go of that. Similarly, another mom at our last retreat, she has been married 15 years. She experienced postpartum depression after her son was born and kind of this detachment from him. She said she felt really guilty in his early years. He's 7 now, but in his younger years of like feeling like she missed out on those years because she was like, why don't I enjoy this? And I think many mothers can relate to that. Like, that's another thing. It's like postpartum depression is something that women need to talk about because most of us have experienced it. And in ceremony, so she actually had a C-section and she felt kind of robbed of this like ability to have that natural birth. Like it was really important to her to have that and she wasn't able to. And so she was like, so in ceremony, she said she was able to give birth. And it's interesting during, after like we say landed, like everyone comes down from the mushrooms. She was like, was I doing any like weird movements? And we're like, no, like just like it was just all in her. Like,
she's like, was I giving birth?
Was I giving birth? I'm like, no, you were not. But she was like, I felt it. And she was like, it was almost like this like reassurance. And she felt this overwhelming, like remembering that she's a good mom and that she was able to reclaim that part of her womanhood. And everyone in the room was just like tears, just like so powerful to hear that. Wow. Yeah. And another woman, she was, she just started laughing in the like, and then when this happens, everyone starts laughing. And so it's kind of like a popcorn, like, It's so great to see. But later she said she started laughing because she started to think about all these problems that she's been having in her life and kind of people she's been blaming for it. And then all of a sudden she had this epiphany and was like, wait, I have control over my own life. It's so simple.
My life.
Yeah. And she was like laughing at the simplicity of that. And that's like what the medicine showed her. Like you are in control of your own life. And so it like just the simplicity of like that recognition was just so beautiful to hear.
Do you find, so first of all, have you read Body Keeps the Score?
I have not.
Okay. So you would love this book actually. So the book is all about how the body holds all of our emotions, our trauma, our like fill in the blank. And, you know, when you and I were talking before that, our kind of first conversation, and you were sharing that about the back pain and the guilt, it was reminding me that I have the same thing, right? And I feel it in my lower back, and I know when I'm carrying some guilt around about something, even if it's not guilt I should be carrying, doesn't matter. Like if I'm carrying it, I feel it in my lower back, and I feel this like my back almost going out. And I don't have a bad back. I don't like. There's no reason for my back to go out. It's not a chronic issue. I feel it when I am carrying around this stuff. So this whole book, the whole point is how we all carry this stuff in our bodies, but we carry it physically. So I have to imagine, right, that women and you going into the retreat maybe have some physical ailments that I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice, but like, I think those things do get solved, because when you start to realize like, oh my God, I'm like I was carrying around all this guilt about the divorce too with my kids, and it was causing me all these back problems. And then when I kind of owned it and got over it, I was like, oh, oddly, my back feels better.
Yeah. The mind body connection is so powerful. And you know, that our thoughts are directly related to not just like our feelings, but like our bodies, and like and holding that physical pain.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how physical, emotional, I don't want to say pain, because it's not always pain, just emotions get carried inside our body too. And what that actually translates into in everyday life. And I've definitely met people with chronic pain who have then gone through an emotional transformation, and then the pain is gone. So, again, I'm not a doctor. Go to your doctor, seek advice.
And our breathwork facilitator, Emily Weichel, so she specializes in trauma-informed breathwork, which really taps into that mind-body somatic release. And so that was another beautiful moment I was able to witness in our last retreat, is just seeing that breath work and the release and of emotions that they felt after that. So that really prepares for ceremony, because you're able to like mentally prepare your mind and body for ceremony.
Do you find that I read this somewhere, so I don't know if it's true. It wasn't a deep article, so I'm not sure. I didn't see research, but it was talking about how we've become, because we sit at our desks all day, we become shallow breathers, and we're not intended to be shallow breathers. We're tended to be deep breathers as humans. And because of that, right, we actually get a lot more anxiety and stress than we need, because we don't actually know how to breathe, as silly as that sounds.
Forgotten how to breathe.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. So I don't know if that's kind of, if people do that through the breath work, if they start to experience of like, oh, like this is what good breathing feels like.
Yes. Like that actual like belly breathing.
Yeah.
Like depth of like,
So why do you think psilocybin work? What is it about psilocybin that becomes so magical? And I don't just mean that in the woo way, but I mean like the actual results of it.
Yeah, the research is still, they're calling it a renaissance, because now that it's becoming more destigmatized, like the research is able to resurface. And evidence has shown that it truly is able to let go of your ego. And that's a big part of healing, is detaching from your ego. Like you may have heard the term, heal it to feel it. So oftentimes when we've experienced a trauma, like I think our culture has, fortunately things are getting better, but I think like historically it's been like sweep it under the rug, be tough, you'll get through it. When really we just need to feel that. And we've become so like numb almost to being able to tap into like those deep feelings in order to get through it. And there people like, and this is a whole nother conversation. I think that our coping skills have become like turning to different like non-healing substances like alcohol and just other things that just don't
numb us.
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, I would even argue or add, I guess, we're not arguing about it, but that like things like streaming shows and like there's other things that become numbers that have become very acceptable in life.
Yes. The scrolling on the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like it turns your mind off, and we're not able to tap in.
I want to go back for a second and talk about mental health overall. because you had said something in the beginning about it, and I didn't want to overlook that because I think that's important. Why do you think it is so important that we talk about it more? And what does that destigmatization do for us?
Yeah, I think that there's still a lot of taboo around therapy and counseling. When someone says they have a therapist, I think that sometimes people are like, oh, you must be going through something really hard right now, which often can be the case. However, therapy and counseling should be used as preventative. Like we all have mental health, and we all, like, life is hard. And so I think the more we talk about like the real issues versus like what we're constantly just seeing on social media, which is like, I mean, we're all guilty of it. We post pictures and like, look how happy I am, instead of like the real stuff, and it just brings back that human connection, that we really are all one.
It's interesting. I have a friend who he did a test on Facebook where he stopped posting all the like, look at my glamorous life, like, the photos that we all post and the posts that we all do.
Yeah.
I started posting just some real shit, basically. And he got fewer likes, fewer engagements, and so he kind of concluded at the end of it that people didn't want that stuff, right? They wanted the aspiration and all of that stuff. I'm not sure how true that still is. I feel like we're so desperate for connection these days, but I thought it was interesting that this was a couple of years ago now. Actually, it was before COVID, so a while ago now. So I wonder if that kind of social media isolation, but also aspiration, is actually a bad combination for us as humans.
Yeah, like you mean the over aspirations on like the constant.
Everything we see on it looks so good, right? So I look at Instagram and I'm like, oh, look at this travel blogger. What a life. Or, oh, this person's so fit. My God, they're amazing, right? And they're always at the gym. And, oh, look at that family. They wear matching pajamas. Like, I can't get my kids up before 10. Like, it's kind of like, right. I see that. And at the same time, I have zero connection to anybody, really, to any of those people.
Yeah.
I don't even know most of the people that, are on my feed these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fortunately, I think there has been a more of that, like people posting. Some of the most successful blogs are moms, actually, who highlight the realness of how hard motherhood is. And that because other moms want to connect with that. They're like, I had that morning too, like complete meltdown and Cheerios all over. So yeah.
What do you think over Cheerios? My kids are teenagers now, but I remember those days. What do you think people should know what do you think people should know about mental health? Because to your point earlier, like you had said, there's kind of some stigmas around it, or maybe we think to talk about mental health is because you're dealing with something major in that moment, when that's not. You said everybody has mental health. So what advice do you have for listeners? Like, here's how you really need to think about mental health for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's number one, recognizing that our thoughts and our feelings are directly related. And that, it kind of goes back to like meditation and focusing on your thoughts and realizing like that connection. And I think it also is just realizing that the resilience factor. So I mentioned like how difficult life is, and that challenging times are never going to end. That's just life. There will always be something that's going to be really hard to get through. And recognizing that and knowing that this is just a moment, that this is just a hard moment right now. It's not forever, and getting past that. So like building resiliency is like really what it's about, and really recognizing the thought, feelings, connection.
So I've heard two camps on this. I'm curious where you come from. I've heard our thoughts are us. And then I've heard, no, we can actually, I don't want to say control our thoughts, but we can decide whether we want to agree with our thoughts or not. So like either they're in the driver's seat or they're in their passenger seat, I guess is the way. How do you think about that? And then what do you do when the not so good thoughts pop up?
Yeah. Well, our thoughts come from all kinds of different things: our environment, our upbringing, our subconscious. And so yes and no, they are us, but also they're a result of our environment and all of those other things. Also DNA plays a big part in it too. But I do believe we can choose. I'm in the other camp. Like, you can stop and think and say, wait, no, like I'm choosing something else.
I love that. So I want our listeners to just really hear that, because I think a lot of us struggle with our thoughts then control us. And then we think, well, just because I thought this is horrible and I'm never going to win or I'm never going to succeed means that's true. But it's really, I found it not to be true. But to your point earlier, I do think you have to recognize that thought or that feeling is there, because I know for me, I spent a lot of years, I grew up in a very tough household, right? Like my dad went through war. He grew up on a kibbutz. He has seen a lot more than, most of us in the US have seen. So like, you didn't cry, you didn't show emotion, right? You just kept punching. And it took me, well into my 40s to realize, like, it's actually okay to feel those feelings and to know, like, hey, Tamara, that thought is there. I don't have to listen to you, but I hear you. Like, I know you're there.
Yeah. Really, that's the first and most powerful step, is just recognizing the thought. Because so often, I think I can't remember the exact number, but it was something like, we think it's something crazy, like 500,000 thoughts a day or something. And like most of the time we're just on autopilot and we don't even recognize it. It's like, what am I going to eat for breakfast? What am I going to wear? Just like small stuff like that. But also some of those sneaky thoughts get in too, of just like, I'm incapable. I can't do this. Which are, I also love the research behind just the positive self-talk, and then, which is why we do incorporate that into the retreat too. Is just like, there's so much research behind it. It's like, truly, there's a TED Talk too. It's a great one. It was like, fake it till you become it, instead of fake it till you
make it.
Yeah. So like, but believe it till you become it. There we go. Believe it till you become it.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's more than just like faking it. You're just like, you truly believe, like, yes, I will. And then you just do.
I had another everyday innovator in our community who said, faith it till you make it. So instead of fake it till you make it, that same kind of thing of like, because fake it till you make it. So I've always struggled with that, because I thought, well, why would I fake it? Like, what good does that do me in the end?
That just like reaffirms the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So can we talk about that a little bit? Because here's one of the things I struggle with positive self-talk, and I believe in it. But here's where I struggle. And I'm going to share this for real, because I think there are other people. I think there are other people out there who are going to say the same thing or have experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
So let's say, I don't know, whatever it is, like taking my business to the next level, losing weight, like it could be anything. I'll come up with a really positive track, but there's this, it's like the little primal lizard in my brain's like, yeah, but you're nowhere close to $10 million. Like, what? Or, but that's 20 pounds. Like, you're not like, you have no proven track record of that. It's like, and it's not that conscious even. It's just this little thing in my brain that is like fighting the positive self-talk as I'm doing it. So how do you deal with that?
I think a big part of it is just naming it, but not living there. So like, those of us who are able to like pass through it, just knowing again, like that this is just a moment in time of like this discomfort and this recognizing that, like that feeling and acknowledging that thought, to being like, okay. And also like wondering too, like, what is the evidence I have for this thought? Like, that's a big part of cognitive behavioral therapy.
I love that.
Yeah. Is like, what evidence do I have for this? Because most of the time our thoughts are totally just like, we have no evidence of whether it's true or not. It's just like, and then our brain will start to create stories. And I mean, and then you're just down a rabbit hole of like catastrophizing everything. Yeah.
It's interesting. I got really stuck in my business. I got a good level of success, but I was trying to get it to the next place. I really wanted to, for a lot of reasons. And I could not get past, and I felt like I tried every business tactic I could to do it, and I just couldn't make it. I don't know, I just kept getting stuck. And then I backed up and thought, I need to work on myself. Clearly, like, I'm the common theme here. So I'm going to stop with all these tactics and strategies, and I'm going to work on the inside for a while. And sure enough, like, I shed some stuff, uncovered some stuff, realized some things. And that's when things started to really open up and move forward. But I really had to stop and work on me. And it was a real interesting thing, because I used to think that's something that I have this joke of like, that's something rich people say. You know, like, people who are like, I meditate for 8 hours a day. I'm like, whatever. Right. But I actually think there's something to it now. I've kind of realized, like, I used to think you got successful and then you did these things. And now I'm kind of realizing it's actually the other way around. You work on yourself, you do these things, and then you get successful, whatever success looks like for you.
Yeah.
So in any way, whether that's being a good mom, running a business, losing weight, whatever.
Yeah.
But that self-talk was really important, but it took me a while to get over that barrier, and it's kind of subconscious, that barrier of like, no, you won't, that hasn't happened yet. So I love what you just said about like, well, what's the evidence for that? Well, I don't have evidence. My negative self-talk doesn't have evidence either. Right. So like, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I love also the just what you shared about working on yourself. Like I believe in, growth mindset never ends. Like we should always be continuing to work on ourselves and evolving and growing and learning from our mistakes and failing, because that's a big part of how we learn. And so I think that I just love what you just shared about that, because like continuing to grow. I'm a psychologist and I still practice positive self-talk and all of these things. Like, it's like something we continue to do even as professionals.
Well, one of the things, Felicia, that I'm really getting out of this conversation that I want all of us to kind of remember is you don't have to wait for the big event to then go work on yourself. And I think, we hear all these, Hollywood stories of like, I was at rock bottom. My husband cheated on me with 10 women. I don't, like all these crazy stories. And then those people go work on themselves and it's awesome for them. But we don't have to wait. We can do this as part of our daily practice. So I'm wondering for you, like, what are some daily practice tips you have for all of us out here who want to like, work on ourselves, elevate our mental health? Yeah.
So, I can just share some of the things that I do in the morning. I do not look at my phone for at least an hour, which I know can be very challenging sometimes. And I will say, like, my morning routine is not consistent by any means. This is when I literally would like have not rushing my son to school, because also a real mom here too. Okay. So what I do in my perfect morning routine, it is, just like meditating for 10 minutes, journaling and drinking water, leaving my phone off. So those are just things like having that like 30 minutes a day to myself is like really important. Whether that's in the morning or in the evening too, which, or even midday, like, we all know the research behind exercise and some of those things that directly affects our mental health.
I love that. And I'll just tell you a quick story because it just happened that I think you'll appreciate. So 2 days ago, my 15-year-old super into airplanes and jets and just planes. He just wants to spot planes all day long. So he says to me, hey, Ima, can we go to DIA and go plane spotting? And at first, like, I kind of clenched up a little bit because I'm like, oh my God, I have work to do. I have more work to do. Oh my God, there's more work to do. And then I thought, you know what, Tamara, you can take your computer and go do something, while you go plane spot. So I'm sure the police will be at my door in any minute, but we found this field that backs up to one of the runways. And so we were out there with a camera. I'm sure all the pilots were like, what are those two people doing sitting on top of a Forerunner taking photos of us? But he wanted the plane spot. Like, he knows the planes. He knows about them. He wanted to talk about them, right? Like, he's super into it. And when I got there, the computer actually ended up never coming out. And I answered a few emails that came in that like needed quick responses, although I was holding somebody else up. And then the most amazing thing happened, Felicia, like, 'cause my energy shifted to being really present in the moment. Like, 2 incredible opportunities for the business came in that were just totally out of left field, like unexpected. I got another email from another opportunity thing for the nonprofit that I work with. Like, it was like the universe opened up because I'd put myself in the right place, doing the right thing, focusing on the right things, the energy that I was putting out into the world was better than the energy had I been white knuckling at my desk. And I found this to be true often, right? This is not the only time that I've been like, wow, it's like my energy dictated what happened around me, right?
Oh, I just got chills because that's so like, oh, that's so powerful. It's so true.
Right? Like, have you experienced that too? Because it's hard to, I don't know how to explain it, but it's something about your own personal energy that changes your relationship in the universe. Maybe you can put some words behind it because I don't know how to explain it, but that's not the only time. It is every time I do something like that, it happens.
Yeah. And I have found that with this business is like when I had this idea and it truly came to fruition was because I was leading with my heart and I was leading with like this like intention to help and to heal and just like not out of like, I'm going to take advantage of this new industry that's growing. And, you know, it's just more of just like, I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And so things just naturally started falling into place. And the that we have on our team, just like the right people, the right places, the right connections, it just naturally came to life. And so yes, that's very true. Just the energy.
It's true in like how I sit down at my desk, but there was something about yesterday that was super magical and I could feel it in the moment. Like I knew it was happening and I've had those experiences before. So I guess for people out there who are worried about breaking away or taking time to yourself, I think kind of the reason I shared that is what you were saying about the self-care and the meditation or 30 minutes to yourself. I think that helps you have the right energy in the world. And that right energy does then translate into a lot of other things that I don't want to say that like are not explainable, but I think it's all connected. So like the energy is then matched in the universe, I guess.
Exactly. No, I agree. Yeah. Taking time to just tap in and get to you. And that could be as simple as like playing your favorite song and singing out loud.
So true.
Just like releasing that type of energy or dancing in your living room or I like to just sit on my porch and just like watering my flowers or, you know, just taking time to like do something that like brings joy to you so that you then radiate the joy.
You know, music, I don't know what it is about music, and we all have different tastes in the music, but there's nothing I love more than cleaning the house and listening to music that makes me dance.
That's great.
My fiance is like, you are always cleaning. I'm like, it makes me happy. Like, I don't know what to say.
I clean up. I'm the same way. Yes.
Let me ask your opinion on this then, because I suspect that you are, I don't want to say a minimalist, but like you like things in order the way I do. I'm a little bit of a minimalist, like not huge, but I don't like a lot of stuff. And I always tell my kids to clean their room. And I wish they were here at home because I would yell at them and they would yell it back to me. I always say them because a messy room is a messy mind. And so like if your environment's messy, your mind is messy.
Yeah.
And so that can be true for your work desk, can be true for your life, your car. Like when my car gets a little messy because I got dogs and kids, like I get really riled up in my car. Do you find that? Because you had said earlier that environment really impacts your thoughts. Do you find that disorganization becomes disorganization in the mind?
100%. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I believe that like decluttering things and keeping things as simple as possible is like, it's very cleansing for the soul.
So cleansing.
Yes. My house is very, I mean, I wouldn't say spotless. Like I said, I do have a 7-year-old, but like,
yeah, of course.
It's, I can see there's not a lot behind me here.
Well, that's what kind of made me think of it. Cause I'm kind of the same way, right? Like I got my little stand and my plant, like that's about it. Yeah. And my whole house is like that. I would like all the counters clear, but the reason I mentioned that is, you know, I do think you had said earlier that environment plays a big role in our thoughts. And I think it can bring us up, but it can also bring us down. Don't you think?
100%. Yes. Yeah. If your life is like cluttered and not organized, your thinking is cluttered and not organized.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody out there, go clean. Sometimes when I have a lot to do, I'll clean my desk first because it just makes me happy before I sit down and like get stuff done. Nice. Let's go back to your retreats before we kind of run out of time. So when you pull the retreats together, what are you hoping women walk away with?
A reminder of who they are, like a reminder that you are, and excuse my language, but a badass. Like you are, I believe every woman is a powerful being, and that reminder of who they are, like you are radiating. That's why that word, just like radiant resurgence, in its name is a reminder of just like, research, come back, remember who you are.
So here's my Oprah couch question for us. It seems like, particularly for women, that we somehow, and I think it's true for men too, but particularly for women, and we lose ourselves along the way. I think, if we go, I know you said you do a lot with kind of like who you are as a child. And I love that, because I don't think it's about acting childish. I think it's about really realizing when your personality was at its full itself without boundaries, because you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Right? Who were you?
Yeah.
And then over the years, it gets like pushed out of us. And I'd love to hear your perspective on why you think it gets pushed out of us, and why we end up in this place when we get older where we're like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a big part of it, I'm speaking to my own personal experience, and like what I kind of realized when the result of my divorce was like the societal pressures for us to be a certain way. Like, I got married pretty young, and I was told, on paper, it all looked what society told me I was supposed to do. And I was like, why am I still so unhappy then? And so remembering like what truly makes you happy. And it doesn't always necessarily need to be like what society tells us that we need to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think there's a lot of pressure. And I think for women in particular, it's like, we're supposed to be good at our jobs. We're supposed to be ambitious, but also we're supposed to be selfless and raise our kids. And right. So there's like all these competing narratives, I guess.
Right. That's so
like,
true.
Like I feel guilty if I don't get a full day of work in, and I feel guilty if I don't make a full meal from scratch. So like, choose one tomorrow. You can't have both in a day. So.
Yeah. And I really learned, like, I think what I love too about the Becoming the One course, it taps into this, like, the beauty of duality. And you can have the both and. I'm a mom and a businesswoman. I'm the both of these, like, typically competing things, but can coexist together, which is beautiful.
Do you believe in balance?
In what sense? Like life balance and...
Yeah, like for me, and I don't want to push, I always like to preface that, because I can't stand people who are out there like, this is the way. And it's like, well, it's your way.
Right.
But for me, I find that it's more about priorities than balance. So like right now, over summer, while work is very much top of the list, spending some extra time with my kids because it's summer and I actually get to see them for more than, after school dinner, because they do their sports and their clubs and whatever. So for me, summer's a great time to reconnect. So that's why I took yesterday morning off, right? And did the train spotting, because I was like, well, I don't have any meetings, so let's make this happen, right? I'll work later in the day another time. So for me, it's always been about priorities. And I've always struggled with balance because I could never find it. It never balanced for me. It was never 50-50 or whatever, right? Like I never had enough to make everything work out so that, the teeter-totter wasn't off in one direction, where prioritizing makes me feel a little bit better, because it's like, what matters now versus kind of how do I get it all?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's too many pieces of the pie. I don't even think of it as a teeter-totter, because there's so many different things that we have. There's our social life and not just our work and a family life, social, and our physical fitness and our financial health. And so like at some point, some of those will be like lower on the scale. I'm picturing like one of those circles with like the pie. Some pieces of that pie will be a larger chunk than others, but then a few weeks later, then the pie shifts. So it's just kind of like ebbs and flows throughout, and depending on priorities. So yeah, I would agree with that.
I heard a guy that I follow, Myron Golden, that's his name. He's on YouTube, and he said, I don't want to hustle and grind. I want to ebb and flow. And I was like, oh, I really like that.
That's a great reframe.
Isn't that?
Yes. And I've also heard another great one, because we often throw the words out, busy. I'm so busy. And our life coach, actually, because I took her the course, the same one that we offer. And she says, I want you to reframe to abundant. And so now when I think about like, I'm not busy, I'm abundant, I do get to have like a business and a work and family and friends.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I am abundant. It just like reframes that in a different way.
So what I really love about that for everyone listening is busy makes you roll your eyes. Like, I'm so busy, right? Like,
Yeah. Like, we're all busy.
Yeah. And it makes us exhausted out of the gate. It's like you go into work exhausted or whatever it is, exhausted. And, you know, I know a lot of people in this world who would be so excited to have the level of work that any one of us have, or the level of life or abundance in our life that any one of us have, that we shouldn't take. We should be grateful for the, to your point, abundance. So I like flipping that. Yeah. I also like it because I feel that busy, particularly in the US, is a badge of honor, which I think is so stupid.
Yeah.
So if I say to people like, I don't actually have much going on today, they're like, lazy ass. I'm like, no, like my brain actually needs some time to like just percolate and think. Yeah. And I need to charge my battery. I need to, you know, like do something else or not do something. And I used to feel really guilty, like sitting down for half an hour just to sit down and have some coffee. Like, oh, I just wasted half an hour. But now I realize, you know what, that's a beautiful thing. So the whole busy is a badge of honor, I think, is really a shame.
Yeah. I love that metaphor of like when pilots say, put your oxygen mask on first. The same for ourselves. Like if we can't take care of ourselves, we can't do anything. And so like making ourselves a priority is like the number one thing.
Why do you think that's so hard for people? Because I don't think that's just women. I think in general, we give our, you know, I have requests for meetings every day that serve other people's goals, but take away from mine, really, because it's time I need. And I'm all about serving others, but there are times where you need to put yourself first, right? Yeah. So I think that we as a society suffer from that.
100%. Yeah. I think it's a cultural thing, just like you said, like, especially in the United States, like the American culture is to like work. And the American dream, right? And not giving time for ourselves is like, or, you know, putting that on the back burner. You're like, well, you're just such a hard worker. You know, it's like, well, am I, or am I just like really burnt out? You know?
Well, and I have found that, so I am very driven to be highly productive and highly innovative. Like I need to be those two things. I'm a high achiever, right? Like a typical type A personality. And however, I have found that I am more productive and more innovative in what I do. And so it takes me less time and less stress if I take care of myself as well. Yeah. And I think that's where we mess up. I think we think more hours equals more success. Yeah. But I haven't, at least for me, I have not found that to be true at all. I have found the right hours doing the right things and the right mindset. But to do that, I need to go back and do yoga for half an hour. Ashton taught me the legs up the wall. So I started doing that every day.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
The walk and the, like all that stuff.
And then you are able to put more energy into those things instead of half-assing it or just not fully be able to be in that creative mindset to give your 100%. You know, it's, I definitely believe in working, you know, like harder, not longer.
Yeah. I agree. I kind of was just thinking like, it's a little bit like having a janky car that only goes 30 miles an hour. You'll still get there, but it's going to take you 10 hours instead of 4, right? If you were going the speed limit. I was about to say if you were speeding, but I don't want my kids listen to my podcast. I don't want them to think that I condone speeding because I don't. We'll put links in the show note to everything, of course. But as we wrap up, Felicia, what do you want people to know about the retreat? Actually, 2 questions. What do you want them to know? And who do you think it's for? If I'm out there listening and I'm thinking, is that right for me? Like, how do I think about that?
Yeah. So while I was inspired by a divorce, women who come to the retreat are all walks of life and really looking to just connect back with themselves. So it's any woman who's like, whether starting a new chapter or wanting to reconnect with themselves. The retreat is women specific and it's offered quarterly. So every 3 months. Our next one is August 15th through 18th in Fraser, Colorado. We do have 2 spots left. The pre-work course does start Tuesday. So the deadline would be Monday to register for that. And then our day ceremonies are for anyone, not It's women specific. We're doing private group ceremonies. Those are hosted in Boulder, Colorado. You pick a date of your choice and bring 4 to 5 people that you would like to have this experience with, and have a journey with together.
Is that the psilocybin?
It is, yes.
Oh, I'm so intrigued.
Yeah.
I was telling you offline, I have a friend who's super into it, and
Nice.
has gotten great results. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love that. So really, if you are looking to grow,
Exactly. Yes.
that's kind of who it's for.
Yeah.
I love it. So Felicia, thank you. In fact, it's so funny. The time went by so fast. I didn't even get to talk about your everyday innovator style. So I'm really going to throw that in there because
sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was curious.
Yeah. Well, so here's our take on it is, so, we're talking a lot about mental health. So it kind of fits in. It's not necessarily in that camp. It's like adjacent to, because I believe in the research has shown that if we can unlock our zone of genius and get to our better brain, not our primal brain that's holding us back and giving us the negative thoughts and trying to keep us safe. Like in caveman days, great. In the modern days, not so helpful, really. Normally, it just keeps us from doing the things we want to do. So we developed the assessment so people could understand, well, how do I access my best brain? And who am I in that way? Like, what is my approach to creative problem solving and decision making? And I think much like the stigma around mental health, there's this other stigma around innovation, which is it's for super cool people with purple streaks in their hair and they drive Teslas and they work in Silicon Valley. And that's not the truth. The truth is actually it's part of human design. We all do it. So you, interestingly, are the pathfinder, which is a combination of the 2 power triggers, which is experiential and instinctual. And experiential is all about innovation and motion, doing, like we need to touch it, feel it, see it, and then we can kind of find the brilliance in it and create new ideas. And which I heard it so much to both of those actually in this, the instinctual. So people with instinctual like you are really good at taking information and pulling out the patterns and the insight. So you're really good at making sense of situations and seeing how disparate things actually come together. So yeah, and you're more feelers, right? You tend to feel
with my gut.
Your ideas. Is that true for you?
That's very true. Yeah, I listen to my gut and body a lot.
Yeah. So, and that's because, right, and the gut's actually, it turns out, connected to the brain. So people who are have instinctual, like pathfinders, you're very quick, but because you feel it, right? It's like you know it to be true, and then you have to back up into the logic, right? Yeah.
Really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. And then people like me so I'm a pioneer, which is experiential, so we have that in common. I'm all about motion. Like, I'm like, well, let's do it and see how it works. Right. But the risk taker is all about leaping and being bold. So I'm funny because if people who are feelers like you, I'm like, I need to understand that though. And then instinctuals have to like back up and explain it to me, and a lot of other people too. So I'm in that of like, people are like, what do you mean? How do those things connect? That's why.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I love it because it helps people, like, so as you were talking about being intentional about mental health, I'm very intentional, and our community is very intentional about, if we exercise our innovative mind every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes, we'll get stronger. So why wouldn't we want that? Because to your point about working smart, right? That's part of working smart, is getting into that state of flow and working in a more of a zone of genius and understanding how we learn, what motivates us, right? What drives us. And we know that about ourselves. We can just do it that way, not the way that's not working for us.
Yeah.
So, but that's you. So interesting.
Cool.
And then the dormant imaginative is because you like to have a little bit of more information before, like, to innovate. It's not that you can't. It's just that, like, imaginatives are very in the gaps. Like, everything's in the gaps. Like, they want blank space completely. People who have that as dormant just tend to prefer to, like, pull some data in and then innovate off of that.
Yep, I do love data.
It is. I fought it for so long, and there's magic in data.
100%.
I know. All right, Felicia. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
There was a couple questions about, like, where to find the retreat. All the links are going to go in the show notes and in the description when we get off. And yeah.
Great. Have a great weekend. Thanks for having me. It's great talking with you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.